Hello, thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world. We're here today to learn to paint landscapes with John Muir Laws. We are so glad that you could be here. My name is Beth Kelly Galogally, and I'm the founding director of the Wild Wonder Foundation, which is hosting this class today. The Wild Wonder Foundation is dedicated to encouraging nature connection and conservation through attention, curiosity, art, science, and community. You can learn more about our work at wildwonder.org. We are grateful to today's teacher, John Muir Laws, who goes by Jack, who is an award-winning author, writer, scientist, illustrator, and educator with nearly 4 decades of teaching experience. Jack is the co-founder and president of the Wild Wonder Foundation, and he is donating his time to teach this class today. Thank you so much, Jack. And all funds raised will support Wild Wonder. And our programs are low-cost and free educational resources that you can find on our website. Thank you for your support and for helping share the joy of nature journaling with others through your generosity. A few notes before we begin. I want to give a special shout out to my backstage buddy, Anne-Marie Bergen, who's helping in backstage with questions and tech. Thank you for being here, Anne-Marie. Because this is a webinar, your camera and mic are disabled. This is a 2-hour class and we'll take a quick break at the 1-hour mark. Please use the Q&A feature to ask questions during the presentation, and we'll get to as many of those as we can during the presentation. Also, we'd love to see your class notes and sketches, so please share those on socials and on our new online platform, Wonderland, which is a free private online community that we developed as an alternative to social media. You can find a link for that on our homepage across the top bar. You can click on Wonderland and join that for free. And you can share your sketches over there as well if you'd like to. You can hashtag Wild Wonder Foundation and also tag us at Wild Wonder Foundation. I will now hand it over to you, Jack. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Beth. Hi, everybody. I also want to send a shout out to Beth and Anne-Marie. Thank you so much for helping make this happen. And hello, all my friends out there in our Wild Wonder community. I think that this is a really important time for human beings across this planet to come together to celebrate positive things together. And one of the things that I find myself thinking about all the time is the degree to which we connect with each other through nature. And also we connect with each other through our hopes for our children and youth across the world. And so in times of division, I think that coming together in nature is a really important thing to do, and to help us see the humanity in each other and to help us connect with this world. One way that I love doing this is by including little landscape drawings in my own nature journals. And when I started doing this, what these landscapes were, I kind of have this experience, like at the time, like I want to do a landscape. And I would be in front of some incredibly majestic, beautiful place. And I would start at one side of my paper. I would end when I got, go over the half point kind of to the other side because the land in front of me was big and I would get overwhelmed and it would take forever. And so either one or two things would happen. One is that the friends that I was traveling with would be like, okay, we are so done with this. You have to wrap it up now and we're leaving. Or the other was that sometimes I would just get really sick of drawing trees. Like there's another tree, there's another tree, there's another tree. Oh no, there's a big forest over there. Oh, and so I thought to myself, like, maybe, just sort of stick to little plant studies. But what if there's another way? What if there is a way of, in our journals, getting landscapes that allow us to, like when you're working on a landscape, your brain, instead of kind of being like in here, like, right? It's like, ooh. So, I mean, they're both important. You want to, sometimes you want to, ooh, sometimes. And so to get that happening in our brain, how we can take that in, but I've got a bunch of strategies that make it much easier to get that on a paper in a way that's really useful. one of the reasons I like nature journaling is that it, hold on. Fortunately, I brought something to drink. I mean, I could just hold it with me now. Better. So nature journaling slows us down and allows us to kind of sink and immerse ourselves in a place. So I really do like the aspect of journaling that it is kind of slow food. But sometimes when you're thinking about landscape, do I have the time or do I want to spend the next few hours trying to do this big thing? Or can I get something that is small, that is also pulling me into the vastness of this experience, is pulling my search and my gaze out, far to the horizon in a way that will help me remember this later on, will connect me with this place. You can do all that in a shorter period of time. And I've got a bunch of strategies that I think will help. Let's start here by, I want to share some of my, oh, I need to clean my glasses. I want to share part of my, of some journal entries that I've done and sort of show you kind of what these look like. And here you'll kind of get a preview of some of the strategies that we are going to be using today. So let's pop over to the document camera. Hey there, document camera. Oh, you doing well? Oh, yeah, pretty well. All right. Look at that. It is, so this is, oh, there's a backside of a deer. So here's a little tiny, um, here's a little tiny landscape drawing. Here's a bigger one. Here's a small one. Look at that. Ooh, there's something interesting going on here. We're going to be looking at these sort of insets. And here's a collection of other ones. What I'm doing here are some really simple strategies that help me get what I see in the place on a piece of paper and still kind of get a sense of sort of a feeling of the place in using some strategies that help me kind of get it down more quickly. And these are really, really fun. I love doing these little landscape studies. So let's kind of hear some more little studies. And what I find when I look at these is they will evoke the place for me. They will evoke the day. And when I look at these, it really brings me back to being there. When I was doing it live, it really kind of pulled me into the place. So these, as you can see, well, these are studies from Yosemite National Park, one of my favorite national parks. And I am just so grateful to be in a place with a sort of a rich heritage of parks and places that we can all visit. Beautiful. So I want to show you how to do this. This is what our goal, right? And once I point them out to you, you're going to see that there's a bunch of tricks that I'm using again and again and again in these that kind of make them work as a little study and make them go more quickly and make them a lot of fun. Let's do this now. All right. um, all right, I am actually, let's bring me into the picture. Hi, everybody. I'm in a circle. So what I want to do today is I am going to be looking at how we can use nature journaling, landscapes in our nature journaling. And in doing this, I made a special request of a dear friend of mine. Rob Hirsch is a photographer living in Groveland, just outside of Yosemite National Park. And he has given me permission to use his photographs of Yosemite National Park as part of, and some other of our parks, as part of this presentation. And Rob has written a couple of books. One was a collection of his photographs of Yosemite, and I got to write the foreword for that. You can find these at what was it, robhirschphoto.com. Maybe one of the admins can find that. We'll drop the link into the chat.
We're
And
on it. It's in the chat.
boom, check you out.
Boom.
He's also going to be coming out with a book of his photographs and writings by Beth Pratt, who is the California director for the World Wildlife Federation. And so you can find both of those there if you're interested in following more of Rob's works. You can also go to that site to get prints of his work. So thank you, Rob. I really appreciate that. And so let's take a look at here. So I always hate it when people have like bullet points and they kind of reveal them one at a time. You're like, here's the preview of where we're going in this class. So we're going to be looking at this whole concept of landscape ethos and why that is absolute gold. We're going to be, you saw a few of the sort of frame in frame things that I was doing in my journal. And just to pull that up, like, yeah, here's a frame in a frame. Yeah, a little one right over there, right? So what's going on with that? Why is that a really, really useful strategy? We're going to be looking at a way of adding color that is so much simpler in these little landscape studies. And I think you're going to find that this allows you to get fast color, holds the drawing together in a really useful way. So we're going to explore those. We're going to be looking at values, how to get depth in your drawing, and also the whole idea of adding fun little annotations to take words and have them very physically integrate with your landscape ethos. All of these are tricks. Once you kind of get them under your belt, you'll find that little landscape studies are just popping out everywhere. Doesn't have to be a big deal. And you're going to find that the thing that you do looks a lot more like the thing that you're looking at. You're like, oh, I like this. And then you're motivated to do a little bit more because you got some dopamine. Let's start right here. This idea of landscape ethos. So nature is big. Right? And so when we are in front of big nature, very often we think, okay, I have to do, nature is big, so I need to do a giant canvas. And if you look at, so one of the early California painters was this fellow named Bierstadt. There's giant paintings, and you kind of stand in front of them and you're sort of lost and immersed in it. I thought that when I was starting with drawing landscapes that I was supposed to be doing like little Bierstadt things, which means turn your journal sideways, and then try to kind of work from here to here. There's a couple of problems with that. One is so first of all, that's a lot of turf to cover. And actually, let's kind of dial in on that problem a little bit more, because the amount of space that something occupies on your paper has a direct relationship to how much time it's going to take you to be able to do that. So here's a big landscape, and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I feel kind of overwhelmed. Where to start? Well, what I do is I'm going to do, you can think of landscape ethos as little studies. Sometimes people call these things thumbnail studies, like a little tiny study. And what it is it's the journal page, or sorry, the landscape in front of you made into this sort of tiny little moment, maybe a few postage stamps large. This has several really important advantages, and let's take a look at those now. Right. So one is that actually, I've got these Post-its on my desk, and I just realized that's a perfect tool for this. So I'm going to take a little Post-it here. let's say I have a drawing that's this big. We will call this X. This size here is X. And if I draw something X size, it will take, X amount of time to do. Now, here's the crazy thing. If I double the size of this, you think like, oh, we double the size of it. Now it's going to take the amount of time is 2x. It'll take twice as much time. But watch what happens when I double the size. Let's see, here's its length here. So there, it's just made longer and doubled the height. Oh, ruh-roh. Look at that. So I doubled the size. It just got 4 times larger. So now it's going to be 4x the amount of time. Now, what if I tripled the size of that? You see where this is going. The minute I triple it, I now have 9x. I've got 9 times. It's going to take me 9 times the amount of time to do this larger thing. That's a lot more of an investment in time. So what I can do is if I keep my landscapes smaller, oh, I just saved myself 1, 2, 3, 4, 5x. Huh. I go back down here. Oh, look at all the time I have. And see, what I can do then is if I'm doing things this size, in the same amount of time it would allow me to do this one big thing. I could then kind of get up and walk down the trail and, oh, look at that other thing over here. I'm going to do a little landscape of that. Oh, look at that over there. I'm going to do another little landscape of that. What about that over there? So I can, in the same amount of time, I can kind of explore around and get a bunch of little landscape studies going, right? Again, doing multiple, where did this go? Yeah. So I can go around and do multiple little studies in the same amount of time. If I had sat down, if I made this big, then my girls would get bored while we're there. And that would be sad. But I can, in that same amount of time, I can grab something here, grab something here, grab something here, grab something here. I'm show you all sorts of other time-saving tricks. As we kind of go along here. So having it small is really, really useful. Now, I'll show you one other advantage of making things small. Let's say there is you're looking across a valley. Now let's go zoom down on this. Hold on. Chunka. All right. You're looking across a little valley. And there's a forest there's a meadow forest mountain behind it. All right. Now, at something that is this size, so here's my meadow edge. All right, and I'm going to have kind of a little line of trees. I'm just making a little squiggle kind of come down here. And look at this ballpoint pen's going like, oh, look, it's all dark. There's a little clump of trees. And then there's another little clump of trees back here. When you're doing something small, you can get away with just a little, and that's a forest over there. And then there is this side of the valley down here, and there is another side of the valley back there. Sky is free. If you want to make it a big drawing, you can kind of say, look, I've got lots of sky. But because it's small, I can get away with this here. So with that in mind, let's kind of go back up to this one and just sort of notice some places where you can get away with little squiggles. If you did this big, you wouldn't feel comfortable doing that for kind of a forest edge. But what it is, it's just a little jiggly with some green under it. Oh, it's a forest. Look, Leah, look at this down here. There's a tree, there's a tree, there's a forest in the background. Look at how simple that is, right? Like, That's a scribble with some verticals. And there are two things sticking up out of it. This one kind of looks like a tree. Kind of. That one doesn't look at all like a tree, but because it's next to this, you go like, oh, look, that's a forest. I can get away with this because it's small. And like, look at that forest there. Small is beautiful. Ah, I feel so much better. Right. But wait, there's more. Um, let's think about how we're kind of, this is because we can kind of do these little thumbnails, we can actually play a lot with composition here. So the idea of composition is here's there's all these kind of suggestions for how to compose pictures. Most of them are trying to avoid having you do this. Take whatever you're interested and stick it right smack dab in the middle of the picture. Oh, oh. What happens when you do this, your brain kind of goes here, yep, check, I got it, and you bounce to the next thing. If you just look at this. So here's, I'm going to give myself a box of the same size, right? There's nothing happening here. This is just a little red ball. But the minute it's something like this, there's a story here. There's nothing going on here. But look, this one's over here, right? Like, why is it over there? It's lower. Huh, there's more space here. Like, there's something going on rather than just it's in a box. So, if you draw crosshairs on something and the center of your object, whether maybe that's a tree, like, look, there's a tree, right? And there, that's not really exciting, not really dynamic. This right over here, there's my little tree. This is now we're doing better. The other thing here that's kind of fun is I'm going to try to avoid having kind of splitting this picture here into two halves. Here's the top and here's the bottom that are the same. So sameness is not your compositional friend. The more that you can have these spaces divided in different ways, like you could do it like that, you could do it like that. Right? Both of those, oops, like that. Those are a lot more dynamic. So let's just do that over here. We're going to put in some ground. There's my ground. Right. All right. Much more interesting composition. So the general rule here is that we try to avoid having the big shapes the same size or have something kind of split everything cleanly in half or have something right there in the middle. So one way that people have kind of conceptualized this is you'll see sometimes on your camera, when you turn on your camera, there's little modes on your camera where it puts this tic-tac-toe board into your camera lens. That actually is a useful compositional thing. Um, it's this sort of idea that if you think of your drawing in thirds and putting things, maybe you're putting your horizon here, maybe you're putting your horizon here, maybe you're putting that tree over here, maybe you're putting that tree over here. There's nothing super magical about these places, like, do I need to put the tree here? Or what happens if it's over here? Or what happens if it's over here? That's okay. These are just kind of suggestions to prevent people from kind of going, let's put Bob right in the middle of the picture. So as you, let's say this is your area of focus. If you put it here, great. You could put it here, great. You could put it here. And think of this as a zone. Yeah, you could anywhere in there. That's gonna be fine. It's just sort of trying to say, please do this less. Now, sometimes we've got to come back to the full screen me for this. Sometimes you can put something right smack dab in the middle and it's fine. Like Robert Bateman loves breaking these kind of, anytime people think about rules in drawing, if you start thinking about these composition things as rules, Bob Bateman will go and break that. And the so they're not hard and fast. You can get away with doing it, but it's just useful to be conscious of. And if you start looking at paintings that really kind of catch and hold your interest, you will find that these tend not to have the area of focus like pop right there in the center. I'm going to show you one more way of thinking about these um, these ideas of composition. And this is the three bears. The three bears. So in the three bears, you have Papa Bear, that's mostly. There is Mama Bear, some, and Baby Bear, a little. So you can think of it as mostly, some, and a little, or Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear, right? And what that is saying is that here this thing is mostly sky and some land. Oh, and a little bit of a stream, right? That's mostly some and a little. If this, just sort of compositionally look at if I make the sky the same rough amount as the land, much less interesting. Another way I can think of mostly some and a little here is um, it's mostly white. There's some gray and a little dark. If the proportions of these light and dark parts were the same, it would not be as interesting. So this idea of mostly some and a little is also a great kind of compositional tool. So these are in the back of my head when I am doing things. Let's just kind of jump back into this for a second. And what you can see is in these, think of this as a little composition. So it's mostly this stuff down here, or mostly kind of grays, and there's a little bit of this orange, so there's just a little bit of that. This is mostly blue. Some kind of middle values and a little bit of orange. So just here we are mostly sky, some rock, and a little trees. So I'm just trying to avoid having the proportions of all of those things be the same. Let me back up on this. We'll just sort of mostly some and a little it. So I'd say the focus is these little waterfalls. So there's a little bit of that. In terms of values, it is mostly middle values, some dark, and a little white. It is mostly gray, brown, some green, and a little blue. So those mostly some and a little ideas, you can just sort of use those to kind of get your composition to be just a little bit more playful. Now let's go back to a Rob Hirsch photograph right here. And there we go. So what are we going to do over here? You're sitting in front of all of this stuff. You're starting to feel overwhelmed. One thing you can do is just focus in. Pick some little spot that you're interested in and go over there. All right, so let's take a look here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little landscapito with this. I'm going to zoom in here. So it'll be bigger. Look at this. Here's the size of my hand. That's a big hand. You'll see my little landscape drawing is going to be smaller. And I'm going to think of this as I'm going to have kind of maybe there'll be a little half dome over here with its hills. There's some kind of business kind of coming on behind it, and here, and then mostly some and a little. Do I want it to be mostly sky or mostly ground? I could actually do it either way. Beth, you pick. Mostly sky or mostly ground?
Let's have mostly ground.
Mostly ground. Right, so I'm gonna have sky be kind of somewhere up in here. And
Also, this pencil is a tiny bit hard to see on my screen.
So actually, I'm using this just because it isn't. I'm using this because it shows up a little bit better than
Sure.
regular non-photo blue pencil,
Yep.
which
Yep.
doesn't show up at all. But I'm
Yep.
saying that this is what I might kind of lightly kind of block this in,
Mhm.
um, and and uh, and then I'm going to draw on top of that. So if but when I do this, I can sort of I can see that I have a I'm going to have half dome kind of somewhere in here, and I can look down at my piece of paper and say I'm not covering too much real estate. Again, here's the size of my hand, right? So now, so time me. How fast, how much time is this gonna take? I'm gonna start. I'm really interested in half dome there. And we'll kind of, I'll show you some other kind of mountain drawing tricks here, sort of edges of the half dome is coming down here. It has this little out, it comes over and it comes down. And then there's some forest that comes down there. There's a big hill right in front of here. And so I'm gonna kind of put that in. There's a little tree that is poking up here. I have the other side of the valley starting to come up there. And there is a mountain. There's a mountain. There's a mountain. Um, so
This is a regular ballpoint pen you're using, right, Jack?
actually, this is one that I picked up at a hotel. Nothing special about it. I was, um, my pen died and I was in a hotel. It had one, and I was very happy to pick that up. So yeah, this is just one of my favorite pens. Where's that super fancy one? Oh, where is it? It was here just yesterday. Is the Bic round stick, just a regular ballpoint Bic pen. I love those, but I'm gonna use this hotel pen. Here, I don't like ballpoints that have a super fine point. I like ones with a little bit of a thicker point here. And we'll be talking a little bit more about adding value later, but I'm going to put in just a little bit of value down here, some over here, a little bit more in here. And there's a little landscape. There's a little landscape of Half Dome.
And you are at 1 minute and 50 seconds, FYI. I timed you.
Oh, so that wasn't too much time. Now, imagine if I had multiplied the size of this. Huh. And you might be thinking, but wait a minute. There's a little dome right down in here. You didn't get that. That's okay. Anytime you are drawing in nature, there'll be things that you're putting in, things that you're leaving out. And And that's okay. This is a little reminder for you of of being in this place at that time. And that didn't take too much time. I'm going to show you a few kind of other I'm doing a few things that I'm not yet really kind of articulating, and you'll see that sort of later on in this little workshop, we'll kind of add those in. But that's manageable. Um, and because it didn't take that much time, um, I can I can do another one. This time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get bold and say I'm going to do a landscapito of a larger area. But here's what I'm not going to do. I'm going to keep it. If I were just to take this and continue this drawing, I'm now into a lot of time. But if I keep it small so that this time I'm gonna have this is two postage stamps right there, and I'm gonna have a little half dome over here on this side. There's gonna be a valley, and there's gonna be kind of coming up on the other side. There's gonna be some mountains in the background, and there'll be a little tree down here. right? Because this is small, I'm going to be able to get out here. This won't take too much time. I'm going to start with half dome because I love half dome. Just so wise of folks a long time ago to protect and preserve these places. You think that this area would have been developed and privatized if Teddy Roosevelt, John Muir, and others hadn't worked together. Because of that, I get to go there with my family. That's amazing. So I've got a little side of the valley coming up here. There seems to be a little pinnacle in here. There's a distant range of mountains back there and all the sorts of little bumps on it. And I'm just kind of, well, did I miss a few bumps? Yeah, that's okay. What's coming down here? There's this side of the mountain here. And I'm gonna throw in some trees. Got a tree in here. Just a little line with a squiggle across it. There's a little line with a squiggle here. Sometimes if you give this top of the squiggle just a little bit more definition, it feels a lot more like a tree. Let's try to do that with this one here. Like, kind of make this one here look a little bit more like a tree. At the top of the tree, I'm going to give it just a little bit more pizzazz, and then the bottom of it can be squiggly. Reason we only look at the tops of trees. How much time did that take?
Well, you didn't ask me to time it, so I did
No,
not, unless you asked me and I missed it, but I would
no,
guess
I didn't ask.
it's all right. I would guess about another a whole 2 minutes.
The whole 2 minutes. But you see, because I didn't make this big, I made this just another little small thumbnail. I can I can do that quickly. And this is often all I need to sort of take me back and help me remember this place. These little thumbnails are so powerful. So even when I'm looking at, like, oh, wow, that's really, really big. Um, let me just do, so here's my challenge. All
Jack,
this,
hold on 1 second. A lot of people are asking you to use a slightly darker pencil, this green pencil, just because it's hard, it's almost impossible for them to see. Do you have maybe a slightly darker one that would be easier to see? Purplish?
look at this,
Let's try
look at
that.
here,
It's a beauty.
is magenta Crayola.
Okay, we're gonna give it a try.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little landscape this big. Ready? Time me. All right.
Okay.
There's going to be some stuff in the background there. There's going to be a little half dome here that I'm not putting in the middle. No, no, no. I'm not going to put half dome in the middle. No, I'm not. Yep. And then I've got a little half dome here. A few trees. Done.
1 minute, 13 seconds.
So the bigger it was, actually, throw in an extra 5 seconds. I want to throw in a little bit more dark value down. So the bigger it is, sometimes the smaller I go. And the more you're feeling overwhelmed, make it a little thumbnail, stick it in your pocket. Then when you want to zoom in on some detail, there you go. Ooh. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about this sort of frame within the frame idea. This is really, really useful. This is really, really fun. Let me just kind of to take you back to a little bit of frame and frame moment. There is a larger sketch. Let's zoom out. Dock cam and zoom out. All right. So here is a line drawing of Half Dome. And what I've done is I've just drawn a little frame around part of that. I usually pick the part that I'm the most interested in. What part do I really like? You ever been painting something like, I really want to paint that over there, but all this other stuff kind of gets in your painting and then you start painting this other stuff and you kind of don't like the way that this stuff turned out? So what I did is like, I'm going to just do that. Look, there's two colors there. There's gray, there's blue. It was fast. Actually, here's a little side note. There is kind of one thing on this that I do want to point out. Do you guys see this line right here? I know this is not kind of part of the rest of the conversation, but you see that line right there? That line this is kind of a rounded slope that is coming towards me like this. And that was the line sort of where I could see the edge of a shadow kind of cutting across. And sometimes I'll think about kind of the ridge line of something. If you were kind of just to sort of traverse back and forth over those slopes that come towards you. So if I kind of get rid of that, then how do you show that that part is coming towards you? What I'll often do is kind of put in one of these lines that is kind of wrapping around that. So I do want to just sort of point out that little bit of business there. But anyway, this is the big thing I wanted to show. Here's some more. Here's a triple, right? Look at this. Here is a frame within a frame. So here's this larger picture. And then I threw in a little frame of sky behind it and only colored that in. But that makes this granite pop out. That's pretty cool. And look at this. So here's this other thing kind of looking across this river. Across Mirror Lake here at all the peaks on the other side. And what I did is there are a few places where I said like, oh, I really like that. I didn't feel inclined to do this whole thing. So I just picked a few places and put a little box on that larger drawing, and Bob's your uncle. Look at that. Isn't that fun? And I know that like, here I'm kind of breaking that rule of cutting things in half, but I really liked the symmetry here so much with that reflection that I intentionally made this frame symmetrical. So that's an example of there's a rule and you get to break it whenever you choose. But I was actually intentionally doing that. That was really fun. And again, it's a time-saving thing. I wasn't so much excited about doing this. I wanted to get that, right? So I did. So these little frame and frame things are really, really fun. And they often kind of make the approach to kind of doing a watercolor a little bit easier. You could also do this if you're doing the entire thing with, say, pencil or pen. You could have a whole pencil drawing and then have part of it that you put a frame on, and in that part, with your pencil, just really kind of work it out, work the shadows and details. That way you don't have to do this whole thing, but you just sort of have that little focus part, and kaboom, there you go. So, and look at this. I do want to point this out again. Remember that little zigzag line along the shadow part? Look at that. See, that's what that line right there is doing. You'll see me doing that a lot, and it just kind of helps you kind of get down the side of a mountain without just having something be a big blank wall. So we're going to bop back here to There, nope, not that one. We want that one. There we are.
Hey, Jack, on the screen, there's a little mouse. Right now, it's on the white peaks of the mountains.
Oh, look at that.
Can you just drive it off? Woo, thank you.
Oh, let me just go over here.
Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Oh, I don't want to be back on the page. That's not fair. All right. So let's say, so let's do a frame in a frame. Here we are. So first of all, I'm going to keep it small. Oh,
We can't see that spot. Yeah, I was gonna say. Think
all right. So this is also kind of a fun thing you can sometimes do. Sometimes don't draw the frame first. Sometimes I'll do the frame first to keep myself small. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll do the landscape first and then put the frame in on top of it, to kind of make a composition that I really like. So there's going to be kind of a zone of some trees up here. There is a little peak over here. There is some other peaks peeking out here. And there is a body of water that is coming down here. And there's some little friends in there. Keeping it small. Sometimes with a small study, it's easy to kind of drop the whole thing in with color, but I'm going to just do a so now what will I do? Okay, I'm going to start with that little forest edge there. And I'm going to give myself sort of a hard line or kind of a broken line. And then there's forest that comes up above that. I'm going to, as I look up at the mountains, I'm going to look more at the mountains. So actually I am looking at my screen for a lot of this time that I am drawing. Coming on over here, one more mountain. So actually I'm gonna move my boundary over there. Come into the meadow, there's some bushes out here. There is this edge of the grass here, and so I'm gonna here. Oh, I made my little waterway too far over to that side, but that's all right. Now, what I'm going to do is to make life, let's say, imagine that this was a larger landscape. Um, I could I could paint that entire thing. Because this is small, I could actually probably get away with kind of painting this whole thing really quickly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick a section of it. And I am going to do that. Do I want that water in? Yes, I do want the water in. So I am going to make a little box right like this. And within that, I can add my color. Um, So I've just got a, this is not any special set of pencils. This is sort of a random thing of pencils that I got out of my daughter's drawer. And so what I'm going to do is just lightly suggest some colors into this area, not using any fancy tools, but using this incomplete set of colored pencils. So you don't need every pencil that's out there. Let's take a look. So it's more yellow-green in front of us, then there's sort of a darker green wall, and then there's some blue in the water, there's some purple in the water, there's some blue in the sky, there's some purple in the sky. Okay. All right, so I am going to give myself a few horizontal lines of blue in here, and I am going to put a little bit of that in my sky. My grasses are really yellow-green in the foreground, so I'm going to start with some yellow. And then throw a little bit of green along that, especially along the edges of this. If any of my pencil marks show up, these little kind of horizontal marks might kind of show up, and that will make the ground look a little bit flatter. And then there's a dark green wall back there. I'm just going to grab some dark green. And it's a little bit too cartoony green, so I'm going to throw a little bit of brown on top of it. If you don't press too hard at the start I'm going to bring some brown into the ground here. And then I'm going to get a little bit of purple. Put that in my water and gray it out a little bit.
Just a heads up that it's about 5, 6 minutes till the halfway point of class.
Okay. All right, so there's just a little frame with cheap colored pencils, and that's going to help me. Don't have an orange with me. I do have a little bit of orange. I'm going to throw a little bit of orange in there, and then I am done. All right. So that little bit there just kind of helps me kind of remember the colors there. But sometimes just taking a small little piece. I mean, look at the size of my finger next to that. That's not too much of a commitment. Now, let's get this idea of the limited palette. Something that's actually an advantage of having a good set of colored pencils is that I didn't have too many colors. So as a result, this yellow ends up being here, it ends up being here, it ends up being here. I also had the brown through here, a little bit in here, a little bit down in here. There's not a lot of colors. Where's that purple? Yeah, that came into this. And I guess these they are. There's a tendency when we see all these colors to kind of grab everything in the kitchen sink. But if you have a small set of colors, then what's going to happen is that those same colors are going to appear a bunch of places in the picture. And when we look at that, it feels like there must be some kind of universal common lighting here that is making these colors in this place come out. Each place that you look at has its own palette of colors. Every place has its own palette of colors. And if you toss in every color, it's going to feel like this crazy kaleidoscope. But if you come at it with like, I'm going to use these 2 pencils to color this place. How can I best use these 2 or maybe 3 pencils? Then what's going to happen is there'll be a harmony of color in those things. When we look at that, it'll feel like this place is done, has been created, there's a common light source illuminating these things. Let's take a look at some journal pages where there is some common lighting. And I'm going to back up. All right. So in this drawing here, there was a little bit of green, a bunch of gray, a little bit of orange. There here in that there's green, there's blue, there's gray. Look at this little study here. All right. This is sort of an orangey gray. There's an orangey orange half dome kind of getting light. And then this is an orangey, I don't know if you can so much see it on your, let's zoom down on it. So this is there's a little bit of warmth in this as well. So because there's this orange that is actually in all of these, it feels like they're all in the same light. Huh. Huh. What about here? There's a blue cast in this, in this, in this, in this, and that same blue cast is in here. So a little bit more color in this little triangle here, but you see that blue throughout there. Because there is that common hasp of color, it feels like they are in the same light. But wait, there's more. Let's just take a look at a few others. So what I'm saying here is that even though you have a bunch of colors accessible to you, don't use them all. Here I've got some green, I've got some gray, I've got some blue. There's warm. Let's zoom down on this. I'm hoping that the color will come out on your screen. Look at this. This is a warm orangish purple. Huh. That's a warm orangish yellowy thing there. So the same kind of hasp of color is included in all those spaces. Let's take a look here. There's a little frame in a frame, and look at the limited color palette. I've got gray in the sky, gray here, I've got gray here, threw in mostly some and a little. There's a little bit of this orange. All right, that pops in there, and it feels like this whole thing is under a common light source. Ooh, ooh. All right, so the colors that you choose, the colors that you don't choose are really, really important here. If there's just any other kind of examples. Yeah. So mostly some and a little. And look at that. There's some little bit of warm orange in here. You see that warm orange coming up in here, right? That orange is used in there. There's a gray used in there, and let's put a little bit of blue in the sky. So there's a real limited color palette. And when I do that, things are going to feel like there's a place. Here's the same orange used in here. There's a warm gray used up here. And
Jack,
yeah.
we are at our halfway point.
Aha.
So if you want to stand up, stretch.
Is very good. So
Yeah.
everybody, if you think like, no, I'm gonna sit through this. I really want to encourage everybody to stand up right now and get a little bit of motion into your body. it is not good for us to sit for long periods, but we do it all the time.
Tell us about your shirt while you're up.
Oh, I'm a giant gas ball. Like, ooh, look at my red spot. Look at my red spot.
Check out your red spot. All right, shake out your hand, shake out your fingers. Woo!
This is if you're an illustrator and you're regularly, hunched over your drawing board. This will destroy your body, right? So you regularly have to, if you're going to be doing a lot of illustration, get up, stretch. Otherwise, you will do a lot of damage to yourself. A really great stretch that I like to do that helps kind of loosen up your shoulders, especially if you're like you're just kind of getting into the drawing like that, like stippling. Right. Then try this. Take your arms and see if you can cross this elbow under this other one, and then bring. Since my shoulder injury, I can't do this as well. So I'm going to try to then hold my hands up here, and then I'm going to imagine that somebody has got my elbow and my wrist pulled, and they're going to, from here, they're going to lift it up, and then imagine this whole thing pulling forward. There we go. Okay, do it a little bit better here. All right, so I'm going to go up and then pull it forward. And you'll feel a big stretch across your back. So you're keeping those forearms vertical, and you'll feel that stretch across your shoulders.
Thank you so much. That feels great.
Did you do that stretch too?
Oh yeah, I love that one.
That's a high percentage stretch. Is it time to start again?
Sure. Do you want a couple questions while you're
Yes,
while we're
sure.
getting back in?
Few questions on me.
Yeah, so a couple questions that are I think relevant to right now. One was how do you know when to stop so you don't overwork your drawing, these little tiny landscape details?
Yeah. That's a great question. There is no um, beacon that will go off in your brain saying you should stop now. It's only when you've overworked your drawing that you'll realize I should have stopped 3 minutes ago. Wah, wah, wah. So the general rule is stop before you're done. If you're kind of looking for on the artistic side. Now, for a lot of these drawings, if I overwork it, but I noticed something else that was cool when I was overworking it, great. That's terrific. On the art side, stop before you think you're done. And because a drawing that is partly unfinished, where you can see some of the process behind it, is much more visually interesting, something that is all overworked. However, if you kind of just are kind of in the middle of something and you're in flow and you're looking at the thing and looking and looking and looking and looking and you keep noticing things, that's great. That's great. Because remember, our big goal in this isn't so much, I want to make a pretty picture, although it's really fun when those happen. I want to pay attention. I'm in Yosemite Valley. How can I soak this place in and make the most of visiting my local national park? Want to encourage everybody to get out, visit your national parks, visit state parks, local parks when those are accessible to you. If you're in a place where there are no parks accessible, then any little bit of greenery, any sort of wild space that you can find down by the river, wherever that is, let's get out into those and and make the most of that.
Awesome. Agreed. The other question that would be great to talk about now, if you have time, is how do you decide when you're doing that hatching, the kind of shading? How do you decide what areas to do and like how much to put in?
That is actually one of the steps. That's in the let's circle over to that when I'm talking about the 3 values.
Awesome. And then one other question is folks want to know if you want them to sketch along with you.
Oh, yeah. So if Ray Bonto, if you're watching this, one of our friends over there in London, hey there, has already like 6 pages filled with this. One of the best ways in any class that you're doing of kind of absorbing the most that you can from it is by just kind of draw along with it, paint along with it. If you think like I'm just going to pay attention and then I'll try to put pencil to paper later, your brain will forget a whole bunch of details. And also, just everything is about pencil miles. So if you're taking a class, if we're here for what is it, an hour and a half, 2 hours, that is an hour and a half, 2 hours of pencil miles. So every chance you get, like there are actually some people watching this call that are right now using this as an opportunity to draw a human face because this big human face is in front of you. Pencil miles, pencil miles, pencil miles. We ready to start?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So
Bring
let's go back to this kind of limited palette idea. Um, let's see here. So I'm going to look at a picture. All right. So take a look at this and think to yourself kind of what colors are kind of unifying this. I'm looking up in the sky. I'm seeing a lot of yellows and oranges in the sky. There's a lot of yellows in the trees. So this is going to be mostly a warm palette picture. And all right, so I'm going to have some green. I'm going to have some yellow green, some orangey, and then I'm going to try to get some of that to kind of go darker, sort of blue gray. But I'm going to try to keep my palette small. So let's jump back here. All right. Sometimes if I am kind of trying to make myself kind of keep it small, I might give myself a few light sort of side boundaries, but I'll sometimes keep the top and the bottom open initially and draw those boundaries in later. So I'm going to have these trees across here. There is going to be a there's some sort of a big cliff coming out here. There's a little bit of a half dome poking out back here.
Hey, Jack, I know you're intentionally not pressing hard, but folks are still saying they can't really see. And I'm wondering if you could, yeah, press a little bit harder so people can see. Thank you so much.
So there's sort of a placeholder for a half dome. There's a placeholder here for stuff on the other side. And I'm going to actually bring it all the way over here so that way half dome is less in the center. And if one of your drawings actually bumps into the other, this is a really good thing. Instead of bringing this across here, bring your sky up and have it tuck in behind the other. So one is clearly in front of the other. This will look cool. All right. Now, I'm going to switch media. I've been doing a lot of stuff in with ballpoint pen. I'm now going to use a pencil. This is a mechanical pencil, but you can use whatever pencil you like. And no, hold on, just over here on the side, I'm looking for, where is Ah. I think maybe what I'll do is just so not to suggest that we need any special pencils. I'm going to use an old Dixon Ticonderoga here, right? So nothing fancy about these tools. I'm going to start with this line of trees that's coming across here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little squiggle that is just going to, what I call consistently inconsistent. And we're going to jiggle, jiggle, and then sometimes there's a larger jiggly jiggle, and then sometimes there's a smaller jiggly jiggle. And a few places in this tree line, what I'll do is I will pop, let's zoom down on that a little more. A few places on this tree line, I'll even kind of pop up a few little trees that actually are going to look like trees. If people see that, then the jiggle will be forest. Now, in front here, there are going to be there are some of these lighter trees. I'm just going to put in some little placeholders for, and look at that. I just did three that are roughly the same size and distance from each other. Having things that are really symmetrical like that on my page often looks really unnatural. This line up here is regularly irregular, but this is going to look a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I might have this, and maybe another one over here, so that we're not kind of consistently sizing and shaping. I'm going to have a little slope that is going to come up here. It's going to have a little shelf. It's going to come up. There's another little shelf.
Can you cheat your paper over a little bit? Yeah, thank you so much.
There's a half dome. And where's the half dome relative to that? So the half dome relative to that little point there. There's something that you want to, that can be really dangerous in when you're sketching. Let's say I have one little shelf that comes up like this. There's a little kind of line of my, whoops, line of my cliff like that. And if I take my little half dome line and I start it here and have half dome start to come up from here, you see how that makes this triple intersection right there? That ends up being visually confusing. If I have a line that is doing something like this, and half dome then comes up from there, missing that little ledge, it's much more clear to people that half dome is coming in here. Rather, otherwise, where this line bend happens, people will start to think that this line here might have caused this little break here. So we call these line adjacencies. So look out for line adjacencies, especially where you kind of can get a triple junction. If I've got something interesting going on this slope, if half dome could come in here, or if half dome could come in here, that's going to be much better than half dome coming in there. So, noting that, I'm going to put half dome just coming in a little bit lower here. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time on half dome because it is such an iconic thing. There's a little, I will often talk to myself, I'm going to come up, curve around. It's going to flatten out. There'll be a little step. I have a little shelf. And then I come down. And then out. Down. And bump. Half dome wants to be bigger. Then there's a column on the other side, and I'm going to have Now, I'm just going to try to reshape my half dome just a little bit. But what I want to do now is kind of come in here with a limited palette and have there be a limited palette and have that pull the picture together. I'm actually going to work this drawing a little bit more. What I'll often do is put some tone and value in with my pencil. And then when I go to put watercolor on it, that pencil texture will show through. On this one here, watch what I do with my little hatch marks here. I could just sort of fill this in randomly with sort of direction lines and kind of scribble it in. But what I'm going to do is a bunch of these lines are, because if you were here and you're a water drop, you'd be falling down this way. I will often have my my little pencil lines follow the path, like they're kind of cracks in the rock. This helps this kind of be a vertical surface. So that a little bit of that texture shows through. Now I've got, I'm going to go darker here. Initially just putting in some tone, and where we have the bottoms of these this little kind of forest area, I'm going to put in a few little darks into that. Oh, I am falling off the bottom of the screen. Sorry about that, folks. And then I'll have a few kind of lighter trees in here. Maybe make the edges of this look a little bit more like a tree. These light areas. Now there are clouds that are kind of working on up here in the sky. So my big thing that I want to do here, what I'm going to focus on, is I'm going to use a small palette of colors. I'm going to have a bunch of the same colors appear different places in this sketch. And that will give this color harmony to the picture. So this time I'm going to do it with watercolor. And I'm going to zoom back a little bit so you can see a little bit of how I'm doing this mixing. And also give you an idea, that's just the size of the drawing here. This is a larger one than I've done before, but half of it is sky. I have an old sock here that is, I usually put the sock on my wrist. And now I'm going to look at sort of big picture. What colors do I have in here? Well, there's this yellow, green. I think I'm going to start with that sort of that warm yellowish color. So I've got a color here. This is quinacridone gold, and it makes, I'll show you, it makes a kind of a nice yellow. And I am going to put a bunch of quinacridone gold in here, in that whole forest. And I am going to put a little bit of it up in my sky. A little bit in here. So just threw some quinacridone gold in several places in my picture. Huh. Now, I am going to bring some greens in. And I like to kind of keep part of my palette muddy and gunky with all these other colors. It's only semi-muddy because this is a greenish muddy zone. This is a bluish, this is a warm muddy zone. That's a brown muddy zone, and that's just for kind of gray gunk. So it's not, I'm not going to have too sort of overwhelming mud, but very often as I'm painting, I'll bring colors into this. And so I'll kind of get a limited number of colors from just, right here from the palette. I think I want that to be a little bit more kind of clearly green. You see that yellow is poking through. And that's kind of helping kind of hold things together. I'm going to get rid of a little bit of that green on my brush and then put a little bit of green into these closer trees. A little bit more faded. Now, as I go back in this, I'm going to sort of, in my palette here, there's sort of a brownish mixture. I'm going to mix that with a little bit of shadow violet. Test that color, and I've got sort of a warmish purple color now. And I'm going to put those into my back mountains. And I want this edge to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to pull some more dark green into that. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that color. Bring it into halftone there. But halftone's kind of getting a lot of the same sort of color that is in these foreground pieces, just a little bit lighter. And then finally, I'm going to put in a little bit of sky. How am I going to do that? I think I'm going to have some warm yellows. I'm going to have some, let's use that same color that we're using in those shadows. This same color is in those shadows. Let's test that. Yeah, I'm going to bring that into get some more of that quinacridone gold. Boop, boop. And getting more of that kind of gunky gray. I'll bring that into these clouds. And I'm going to increase the value on these closer parts to push halftone a little bit further back. I'm going to increase the value on some of these bits here. So I had green, I had quinacridone gold, and I had a little bit of this purpley grayish mixture. And that makes it feel like all these things are in the same place. So deliberately restricting the number of colors that you use. You saw the same thing here. There's not too many colors that are used in that. That same color gets picked up here, gets picked up here, gets picked up here. That does a lot for giving you a sense of place. I'm just going to bounce around here, see if here, oops, let's go for this view. Nope, not you. Go for this view. So this is looking out at sunset views here in Northern California. Again, limited palette, the same kind of colors that are coming in here in the sky. You see some of those reflected down here. Because it's not a smorgasbord, those places feel much more unified. Here, kind of a quick little study of oaks on a hill. You see the same color brought in there. You see the same colors brought in there, and that causes a unity of how that feels. And same there. So just limit the number of colors that you have. And there was one other I wanted to show you that is not putting my hand on right now, but this will do. So you see the same colors repeated. The color that is in here is the same as the color in here. This color, same here. So you reduce those. Sort of reminds me of a long time ago, I saw that Mozart movie, and there's this wonderful scene where there's a number of critics who tell Mozart that that's not a good piece of music. There's too many notes, and but here I would actually say you can improve the work, make it simpler, deliberately choose which colors you're going to put in, and let those come up again and again. Boom, color harmony. One of the disadvantages of having a big palette is you could do it all, and then it won't feel like there's some kind of unified light source. So let's take a look at this idea of 3 values. What you want to do when you're looking at any picture is well, I should let me back up. How many of us, when we learned about painting values in or drawing values in an art class, they gave us an egg or a coffee cup, and you spent all this time kind of carefully blending one dark into the light part, and then have that go into highlights. That gets us really focused on trying to get our pencil smudging to be smooth. If you're drawing an egg, that ends up being a really useful, important strategy. Most objects in nature have edges and angles, that it's not a completely rounded boulder. There will be planes on it. And where you get those planes, you get much sort of sharper transitions between colors. So rather than focus yourself on trying to make lights and darks blend smoothly, pay attention to the shape of the darkest parts and put them in dark. Pay attention to the shape of the lightest parts and put them in light. And if you very simply think about this as 3 values, there's going to be my dark, there's going to be my light, and then there's something in between. It's much easier to look up at the rock in front of you, say, where am I going to make you dark? And put that dark. Where am I going to make you light? Put that light. And then every place in between, put in some middle value. Or another way of doing that is to start with everything, with just figure out what is your light shape, make everything else middle value, and then say, where's my dark shape? And make that dark value. The value in our drawings carries so much more of the weight of making the drawing work than the colors themselves. So if the colors aren't working, work on your values. Just improve those values. We see colors change all the time. As the sun moves across the sky, we saw in whether those drawings where of half done where it turned from more orange into blue at different times of the day. The Well, my computer is saying, like, do you want to update all your software right now? Well, let's say no. So let's take a look at places where I am kind of simplifying the values and getting those down on paper. Where's my light? Where's my dark? So here's a little landscape drawing. And look, there is a big dark swath right in front of me. Let's go down to the dot cam. Oh yeah, here we go. Dark, 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 dark. Midtones and light. All right. Here, dark, midtones, some light. Let's go to the Yosemite cam. This is the, yeah, no, you're not in the Yosemite book, but you're the Yosemite book. This is the Yosemite book. Where is all the Yosemite gone? That's, oh, there we go. That one. 3 values. Boom, boom, boom. Could you get lost in finding 106 values in here? Absolutely. But you get your brain to focus on 3. Or here, essentially, it is, so I have darkest, medium, and light, and then the white of the paper. Here, dark, medium, light. And that is a very useful formula for doing any sketch. When I'm doing this here, I'm thinking to myself, where are my darks? I want to punch in those darks, and I was punching in those darks with a pen. Where are my lights? In this, I didn't pay enough attention to where my lights were, and I tried to add them in at the end with a little bit of gouache. You can see that it didn't quite sort of have the same punch as actually leaving your whites. But one reason, something that is working with this is because I'm hitting those darks. There is, on this rock here, there's dark, there's medium, there's light. And that carves that rock. So rather than thinking about how do those blend one into the next, you're thinking about you're thinking about sort of where those darks, mediums, and lights are. Let's look at these little sketches. Dark, medium, and light. There is here's my light, here's my medium, and then I've got a little bit of dark right next to the waterfall. Actually, that's a really great kind of waterfall trick to put some dark right next to where the water makes the rocks darker. That is a really useful little trick there. That makes the contrast with the white also pop out more. Here we have, think about this in terms of 3 values. And you notice, there's not you can pick out other values in there. But in my head, I'm really trying to get myself to focus on where is it light, where is it dark, where is it medium. And there will be a few patches kind of in between where you kind of can get some, there will be kind of other shades of gray. But your mental model kind of going through those is to find those 3 values. Here's my dark, here's my medium, and there's my light. So let's now apply that to, making a little sketch. Look at this. Where is it dark? Where is it medium? Where is it light? It's beautiful El Capitan. Here's a trick. Squint at it. Notice that when you squint at it, how that El Cap in the middle there just pops. When you squint, your eyes pay less attention to detail and color. Oh, that is huge. So now let's take that, whoops, let's take that and make a little landscapito out of it. I'm going to go back to the little ballpoint pen here, and I'm going to block this in. I'm going to keep it small. I'm going to have El Capitan somewhere right in the middle. And there are trees that are kind of coming up on the side here. There are some probably look like black oaks down in here. And some sky. So I'm going to make a quick little landscapito. And again, want to encourage everybody to also follow along, do the same. It's a wonderful saying that value does all the work and color gets all the credit. So I'm going to make a few little oaky lines here. Again, consistently inconsistent, so I'm not doing this.
Who said that great line about value and color? Do you know?
I don't know if anybody does know. I've heard it from several different sources. There may have been somebody who kind of originally did that.
I just noticed that we're about 20 minutes from the end of class, which means you have about 10 more minutes of instruction, and then we were going to save about 10 minutes for questions. Just wanted to give you a heads up.
Right. So here, I'm going to put some of these little trees in here, Tilton in here. So my dark is going to be in there with those conifers. I have my medium in here with those oaks.
So
And then
I was just
Okay.
going to say one of our attendees just Googled it and said it's an oil painter by the name of William Schneider.
Will, let's send a shout out to Will.
Yeah.
Will, wherever you are out there, mad respect to you. So I'm going to put in some kind of dark sky right in here because I want that El Capitan to really, really, really pop. I'm going to go for a little bit of color constancy here. Put something in here. Now get a little bit that in there. And then dark. And I think I wish I made my sky a little bit darker because I want that El Cap to pop. Makes me want to look up the artwork of Will Schneider. There we go. 3 values and a little bit of color constancy, and that is groovy. Now, this leads us to this last part is going to be intense. And what I want to do is suggest that in any of these drawings, excuse me, in any of these drawings, there is a set of tools, and here they are, right, that you can use to give a sense of depth in any of your drawings. And I want to call these out specifically because if you have this in the back of your head, it will really, really help your drawings. So let's just take a look at what these are. And I suggest that you make yourself a little checklist of these ideas. Then whenever you are out there sketching in the field, you're thinking, oh, this drawing looks kind of flat. Then you can look back to these. In some of whoops, let's change the view. Bump, 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 bump. In some of the little sketchbooks that I've made, if you use those, you actually have in the back of it a little chart of these depth tricks. This is saying the same information as we're about to look at right here. But this is a set of tricks that you can put into any drawing, and it will make them look more three-dimensional. So for the first one is that if there are objects that are the same size, the one that is furthest away is going to look smaller. So look around your landscape, and when you find those, right, here there is that big willow tree on the right-hand bank. And then there is that willow tree on the far bank on the left-hand side. And so if I include both of those in my drawings, people will see them as as here's an object, here's that same object, it's smaller, it must be further back. Same with those conifer trees. We see how tall they are in the middle ground there, and then you see others further back, and they're shorter. That gives you a sense of depth in the picture. So intentionally including those elements that are getting smaller in the background, and also being careful when there happens to be a small willow right in front of you and a big willow further away. If I include those in my drawings, I can, and it will be visually confusing. You can choose to leave it out, or you can choose, we'll be talking about annotations in a minute. You can choose just to draw a little line and say, like, look, here's a little willow, right? There are other ways of encountering that, but know that if you include them both with the smaller one in the foreground, that will flatten out your picture. So that can cause problems. Here's another trick here. Let's take a look at. So this idea is that as you look into the distance, as you look at things away from you, actually, if you kind of just look around the room that you're in right now, things that are further away from you, if you point to the bases of those, your finger goes higher. So as I look over here at things on my floor, as I point to the next farther away thing, notice how my hand rises. So when we look at, say, the bases of these tufa columns on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada, let's go with this view. The ones that are close to me have their bases here. What is the next further one? Oh, it's here. What about the next further one? Oh, it's back here. Notice how as you go up in the picture, the bases of these go higher and higher on the picture plane. Is this further away or is this further away? Oh, this one is slightly higher. That far shore is even further away. So the further away we go, the more you move up the picture plane. If things are not floating, this is really useful. So looking for places where you have that is absolute gold. And if you can show that in your picture where something connects to the ground and then look for the next level and put them higher up, that's going to help you. This one seems really obvious, but we often don't take advantage of where we can make use of it. Sometimes just moving around to a different vantage point will be huge in helping you see how things overlap. If there were a boulder sitting right here, it would be hard to tell with overlap how it relates to these other things. However, if you move your point of view over, if you swing around, then that boulder would be sitting here. Right? And you can see that this next boulder is tucking behind it. The fact that this boulder overlaps this one and this one, right? Look for those opportunities to use overlap in your drawings and make it really clear where that happens. As I look into the background, here is a layer. I have this other line of rock coming down here. And then I have little half dome there. I want to really look for where I see these elements overlapping. And wherever possible, include those. So for instance, if I were sketching here and I were to be drawing this big boulder right here in the front, right now overlap is not helping me tell the depth story. But if I choose, as I'm choosing where I'm going to sit down, if I swing over just a little bit to the side, all of a sudden that boulder is now, it's got overlap. That's just another way of fooling people into seeing depth on your flat piece of paper.
Thank you so much, Jack. This is super helpful. I want to give you a a note that it's 9 minutes till the end of class, and we do want to have a little bit time for questions, but I know you have a few more things to get through, so just wanted to give you a heads up.
So these are going to come rapid fire, but
Bring it.
still, in case that you'll be. So I suggest everybody just going to make a little list of these. Right. So what is this next one? So look at this. Circles that get closer to the horizon flatten out. As you get a circle closer to the horizon, that round edge, imagine yourself standing on one of those round manhole covers in the middle of the street. You look straight down, you see a circle. And then you look up the block, and it's an ellipse. Knowing that, this comes up surprisingly many times and is a high percentage kind of goof that we can get into our drawings. Let's take a look at it in this picture here, right? So notice that boulders that are close to you have this front edge is rounded right here. This one is rounded a little bit. This one less. This one is flat. The far side of the lake is flat, right? As I look at these sort of close edges on clumps of grass in front of me, I see their curves. Look at that, flat all the way over there. So this is a really big thing to look for, especially when you're near water. Expect edges to curve close to you, and then you're drawing something different as you go back in the picture plane. If there's a boulder here, it is going to have a curved bottom. If there's another one out in the middle of the lake here, it's going to have a flatter bottom. And showing that, looking for that, you don't have to memorize some formula. Look at the rock, but look at the rock expecting to see a curve towards the bottom and expecting to see a expecting to see that. Hold on a second, my screen is freezing up. Um, huh. Let's just, I'm gonna actually do one thing behind the scenes here. Need to click this. See if it'll get, no, we're gonna have to just deal with these lines on the screen for the rest of the show. All right, please bear with me. For some reason, there's a glitch in the software. But let's take a look at this next one. Look at all those fun lines. So this is line weight, and this is a really, really big one. And oh, I think I know how I can do this. I am going to force quit. Force the screen brush to quit. Nope, that won't work. So we're just gonna have to live with this. So line weight is a is a very interesting idea. Take a look at this here. If I want a line to,
So those lines are now on this screen also.
I know that
Okay.
that was the problem that I was facing. That I, for some reason, normally I can push a button and those go away, but it was not wanting to do that. The heavier you make a line, the more that it will kind of pop into the foreground. So take a look here at these lines here. Let's zoom down. Oh, those little yellow lines are very distracting. So here are lighter lines coming here, bolder lines right here. If I use really thick lines, those will pop into the foreground. So similarly back here, I wanted this cliff edge to be in front of that. So that's a heavier line, that's a lighter line. So I've got this edge of my ground. Those will kind of pop these things into the foreground. Similarly, having a big edge on this will pop it into the foreground relative to other things that are near it. You can use this on landscapes. You can use this in sort of in any place that you can. I want to see another really good example of that.
Just a heads up, we have 3 minutes left. I know you sometimes go over, but if you want to cover any of those other things and get to a couple questions,
Okay. Let's
I'm saying with so much love and so much gratitude.
no. I totally get that, and thank you for helping me kind of keep on time. So line weight. This next one is pretty straightforward. Don't put a lot of detail in the background, or the background will pop forward. See that mountain back there? If you drew all the trees on it, it would feel like it was in your lap. So if you look at any object in front of you, the stuff in front of you, you can see the lichens, you can see all those sorts of details. That is, you don't want to do that in the background. Keep your background more simple shapes, more detail coming forward. Another thing is the amount of contrast. How dark are your darks? How light are your lights? In the foreground, you're going to see the full value range from your darkest darks to your lightest lights. If something is really light and it's in the foreground, you'll see how light it is. If it's in the background, everything kind of grays out. And you see this to different degrees in different places, but look at how much contrast between light and dark is in that furthest background ridge. There is light and dark differences, but not as much as you see in the foreground. So if you, as you go back into the background, in addition to having less detail back there, don't make your darks as dark. That's the big thing to kind of keep track of, is that we tend to over darken darks in the background. The final little piece is that things that are more distant are going to look more bluish, not just be paler, but they will have a blue cast to them. Colors in the front will actually have their natural colors, but as you go into the background, you get more scattered blue light. So look at the distant peaks back there. There's a blue cast over all of them. Now look at the grass in front of you, and you see the warm yellows. Warms in the foreground, cools in the background. That's because blue wavelengths of light scatter preferentially to other wavelengths of light, giving distant objects a blue cast. So not just less detail, not just more pale, but a little bit of a blue cast back there, and they pop into the background. The final thing that we can do to have a ton of fun with our with our journal pages is to add annotations in wherever we can. If there is something that you see and you can add some written notes in along with your your sketches, then that is going to add so much more interest to your nature journal pages. So as I was drawing this little landscape here.
So idea, maybe you could hold this up to your, if the yellow lines won't be on your face, if you just go to your face cam and hold this up instead of.
It'll still be there. Look at this.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
So I've been using the system for years. This is the first time it has done this. So there is There was a little software update this morning. I think it probably has something to do with that. So I do apologize for all those extraneous lines. I hope to get this worked out in the future. But I just want to point out here that this morning I kind of came out and the moon started out up here. And then as I was sketching, the moon changed its position. So having that written in, here's the path of the moon. And then the light, it was cold, but the first light kind of came out and hit the rim of the valley over here. And I put like, oh, here's first light on the rim. The oaks have not yet leafed out. And I wrote, oaks have not leafed out, writing directly on top of this. There's a Steller's Jay that landed over here. So it's a Steller's Jay. When you start adding little written annotations into your landscape sketches, the landscape doesn't have to do the full work of, of carrying all that information. And that is absolutely wonderful. You get so much more information on your page when you bring in your writing with that. So those are um, those are I can scratch myself on these. Right. Those are a bunch of strategies that you can use to have even more fun in your nature journaling with landscapes. And I just want to really encourage everybody to, this is a beautiful, beautiful world. Let's get out into it. Let's celebrate it. Let's find peace and comfort in the presence of nature. And I hope that some of these strategies are going to help you be able to make the landscapes in your nature journals a lot more fun, a lot easier, and give you more options of things that you can do.
Thank you so much, Jack. What a really fun class. We're getting lots of very grateful folks sharing in the chat. I just wanted to say again, thank you to Jack for donating your time for teaching this class. You are such a brilliant, amazing teacher, and we are so lucky to get to learn from you. And we're so grateful that you're donating your time to help support Wild Wonder. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we welcome donations for the class. If you haven't made a donation already, or even if you want to make an extra donation, you can do that at wildwonder.org/donate. Also, if you liked this class, check out our Wild Wonder Video Pass. If you don't already have that, it's a great way to have 30 classes and talks like this for just $45. That's $1.50 each. It's a super steal, and you have access through June 30th. So that information is on our homepage, wildwonder.org. That would be great to join us. Also, if you want to hang out with Jack in person, we have 4 Wild Wonder retreats this year. And you can find out about that on our homepage as well. Those are going to be really fun. 5, 6 days with Jack out in nature, being nature nerds, running around, sketching, drawing, dancing, having a great time.
It'll be a lot of fun. Also on my website, I've got there's still room in the Tuscany trip that I'm leading this summer. So if you'd like to join me there, you can go to johnmuirlaws.com. You can find more about that there. But you can also find a nature journal educator or nature journal club near you if you go to wildwonder.org. And that's also just a great way of connecting with the community.
Yes, awesome point. We have that map on our homepage, and you can also check out our new online community, Wonderland, where there's a member map, and you can add yourself, and you can see there's more than 3,000 people over there now hanging out and sharing pages and asking questions, and there's all kinds of cool content there. And we're going to be having a little launch party for Wonderland coming up on March 8th, so you can learn about that inside of Wonderland as well. Thank you again so much, Jack, for this wonderful class. And we will be sharing the recording and the chat and the important links from the chat with everyone in about a week. We'll get the recording edited and sent out to you. So look for that. And thank you again, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you all for being here. Anne Marie and Beth, thank you both also for all your help with the logistics behind the scenes. Folks, I'm sorry for these bonus extraneous lines here, but sometimes tech goofs happen, this would be one of those days.
Yeah. And also big thanks to Rob Hirsch for these spectacular, spectacular photos.
Yeah.
Wow, just breathtaking. And it's also such a beautiful place. I know Yosemite is very beautiful. And I'm so grateful that we can visit it. So thank you, Jack. And thank you everyone for coming. Bye bye.
My friends, be kind. Let's make the most of this day. This day never happened before. It's never going to happen again. I wonder what's going to happen just if we kind of grab our notebooks and head outside.